My name is Jessica Cole, and this is the story of how I was betrayed, humiliated, and left with nothing, only to rise back up and take everything. Just 5 years ago, I was working at Granger Atelier, one of the most elite fashion houses in New York. We made custom pieces for celebrities, politicians, and billionaires. It was cutthroat, ruthless, but to me it was a dream come true. I was 27, bright-eyed, overworked, and still believing that talent would always win. And I thought I had found a mentor in Vanessa Granger, the CEO and creative director. She was a legend, elegant, poised, powerful, and beneath it all, a viper in heels. At first, she treated me like I was special. She'd say things like, "Jessica, you're the only one here who truly understands style." She even had me sit beside her during client meetings. She'd introduce me as her protégé. I worked day and night, sketching, designing, perfecting everything down to the last thread. I created an entire collection in silence, because she asked me to. And then came the Fashion Week presentation. I stood backstage, heart pounding, watching my designs walk down the runway. My soul stitched into every piece. The applause was thunderous. But when Vanessa walked onto the stage, she smiled, took a bow, and said, "Every piece tonight is a reflection of my journey, my creativity, my voice." Not a single mention of me. One word. Waited. Maybe she'd thank me later. Maybe she'd call me on stage. She didn't. Later that night, she handed me a glass of champagne and said, "You did well, Jess. But if you want to succeed in this industry, you have to learn to be invisible. You're the hands, I'm the face. That's how this works." I felt like the ground had been ripped from beneath me. A week later, she called me into her office. Cold, formal, and just like that, I was fired. She claimed the board wanted fresh direction. But I knew the truth. She couldn't risk me becoming bigger than her. I walked out of that building with nothing but a sketchbook in my bag and fire in my heart. She thought she had ended me. She had no idea what she had just created. Because that day was the day Jessica Cole died. And Jessica Cole, CEO in the making, was born. I wish I could tell you that I walked out of Granger Atelier with my head held high, ready to conquer the world. But the truth. Cried on the subway. Mascara running, sketchbook in hand, heart shattered. I had poured 5 years of my life into that company. I skipped birthdays, cancelled vacations. I once worked 72 hours straight to fix a last-minute disaster for a client Vanessa forgot to even brief me on. And now, just like that, I was unemployed, blacklisted. Because in the fashion industry, when someone like Vanessa Granger decides you're out everywhere. I spent the next 3 weeks job hunting. Nothing. Not a single callback. I started noticing things. Emails I'd sent to contacts I thought were friends, left on read. Former co-workers who avoided me on the street. It was like I had become invisible overnight. Had no job, no savings. Rent was due in 2 weeks. And to top it off, my mom's health was declining again. I was helping pay for her treatments back in Ohio. I thought about giving up, moving back home, starting over. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw Vanessa's smirk, her champagne glass, her words echoing in my mind. "You're the hands. I'm the face." Well, not anymore. If no one would hire me, I'd hire myself. That night, I opened my sketchbook. Page by page, I stared at my designs, my vision, my voice. The collection that stole the show at Fashion Week, the one Vanessa took credit for. They weren't gone. They were mine. I spent the next 2 months building something out of nothing. I worked out of my cramped apartment, using leftover fabric, sewing by hand day and night. I renamed my designs, reimagined them, made them stronger. I took freelance gigs to survive, hemming prom dresses, fixing cheap suits, stitching curtains for hotels. I did anything I could just to earn a few dollars and keep the lights on. Barely slept. But each night, I pinned a new sketch to the wall above my bed. A small symbol of progress. By month 3, I had a small capsule collection, just 6 pieces. Raw, elegant, bold. I called it Ashes. Because that's what I was rising from. I needed a name to put on this collection. Name. But not just Jessica Cole. That name felt like the girl who got stepped on. So I flipped the script. J. Cole Studios. Sounded established. Classic. Mysterious. People wouldn't know it was just one woman in a studio apartment, sewing at 2 a.m. between breakdowns and caffeine crashes. But I didn't care. I created a website, took photos with my phone, posted them on Instagram with 0 followers. And then something happened. A fashion blogger, small time but with a loyal audience, messaged me. She said, "Hey, I don't know who you are, but your collection is fire. Can I feature you?" Said yes, nervously, half expecting nothing. But the day her post went live, my phone started buzzing. 3, 5, 10, 20 orders. People were paying real money. For my designs. For the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't felt since before Vanessa stole my soul. Oh, but deep down it wasn't just about money. Or success. I wanted to prove something. Not to the world. To her. Firm, controlled anger. To the woman who used me. Who erased me. Who built her empire on my back. Vanessa Granger. She thought she buried me. She didn't know I was a seed. There's something magical about momentum. One moment you're screaming into a void. And then suddenly the void screams back. After that blog post, things moved fast. My inbox started filling up. Orders came in from places I'd never even heard of. Small towns, big cities, even one from Tokyo. People didn't just want clothes. They wanted the story behind them. And the story was me. No team. No investors. Just late nights, calloused fingers, and one woman running on coffee and revenge. But I knew I couldn't grow like this forever. I needed help, the right kind of help. So I reached out to Lena Torres, an old classmate from design school. We hadn't talked in years, but she was one of the few people I trusted. Back then we were both broke kids dreaming of making it big. She had gone into fashion marketing and had a sharp eye for trends. I sent her a message. "Hey Lena. It's Jess. I'm building something. Small now but real. Think it could be big. Want in?" She replied in 5 minutes. "I'm listening." We met at a coffee shop the next day. I laid it all out, my designs, my brand, the betrayal that sparked it all. She didn't laugh. She didn't hesitate. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Let's make some noise." From that day forward, J. Cole Studios became more than a side hustle. Lena helped me revamp the website. She used her contacts to get me small features in indie fashion mags and underground fashion podcasts. She taught me how to tell my story, not like a victim but like a visionary. Not the girl who got fired, but the woman who was building something no one saw coming. Then something big happened. A celebrity stylist, one who usually worked with B-listers but had a serious online presence, reached out. She had seen one of my jackets on Instagram and wanted to borrow it for a photo shoot. I packaged it myself and delivered it on foot, afraid to even trust a courier. 2 weeks later it happened. That jacket showed up in a photo shoot with Maya King, an up-and-coming pop singer with 5 million followers. He tagged us. J. Cole Studios exploded. Overnight I gained 10,000 followers. Orders doubled, then tripled. People were asking, "Who is J. Cole?" Nobody knew. And that mystery became part of the brand. Vanessa still hadn't figured it out. But she would. Because while I was building my empire from the ground up, hers was starting to crack. I started hearing whispers from inside Granger Atelier. One of Vanessa's top designers had quit. Another major client dropped her after a poorly received launch. And the kicker? She had begun copying trends, my trends, without even realizing the source. She was getting desperate. And desperation makes people sloppy. One night I got a message from a blocked number. No name. Just a short text. "You built something she's scared of. Call me." Attached was a name I hadn't seen in 2 years. Mark Dalton. He used to be Vanessa's right hand. Operations, logistics, and more importantly secrets. We never spoke back then. But if he was reaching out now, it meant one thing. Vanessa knew something was wrong. And Mark wanted to switch sides. That night I poured a glass of wine, looked around my tiny studio. Walls lined with sketches, orders stacked in boxes, fabrics everywhere, and smiled. This wasn't luck. This was strategy. It was working. And soon it would all come full circle. Because I wasn't just coming back. I was coming for her. Revenge isn't loud. It's not messy. It's precise. Slow. It's patient. Like a needle pulling thread. You stitch quietly. Until the whole thing unravels. The moment I saw Mark Dalton's name, I knew the game was changing. Mark had been Vanessa's most trusted advisor. Her fixer, her buffer, her firewall. If he was reaching out to me, then Vanessa was losing control. I called him that same night. "Jessica," he said, "I always knew you were the real talent. But the way you've played this, I'm impressed." I didn't respond to the flattery. I didn't need validation. "Why are you calling me, Mark?" he sighed. "Vanessa's slipping. She's panicking. Clients are dropping, the board's asking questions, and she's unraveling. She's been trying to figure out who's behind J. Cole Studios." That meant she was watching. Mark wasn't just reaching out to warn me. He was offering to help. Said he was tired of being her cleanup crew. That he'd always respected me, even when Vanessa treated me like disposable labor. He offered something I couldn't pass up. Information. Vanessa's calendar. Client list. Internal reports. Sales data. And best of all, access. Now I could hit her where it hurt. Reputation, revenue, and power. The next few weeks were all about strategy. With Mark's help, I identified 3 of Granger Atelier's top clients. Legacy fashion buyers who Vanessa desperately needed to stay afloat. And I did something risky. I reached out to them. Quietly. Anonymously. Through Lena, we sent them exclusive previews of J. Cole Studios' next collection. Hinting at a rising brand designed by a former industry insider wrongfully cast aside. We didn't say names. We didn't have to. The pieces spoke for themselves. 2 of the buyers requested full meetings. One of them, Eleanor Chase, flew in from Paris. She was known for sniffing out talent before it hit mainstream, and for destroying companies who got in her way. We met in a small studio space Lena had rented just for the pitch. No fancy office. No assistants. Just us, the designs, and the story. My dear, these pieces, their fire and elegance. It's like someone took rage and turned it into silk. Then she looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Tell me, is this who I think it is?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. He smirked. "I want in." That same week, Granger Atelier lost 2 major contracts. Vanessa was furious. She posted a thinly veiled quote on social media. "Some people create. Others copy and cling. The world knows the difference." I laughed when I saw it. Because behind the scenes I wasn't clinging. I was climbing. With Lena's help, we launched a bold guerrilla marketing campaign. Pop-up events in fashion districts. Time drops with influencers. Limited edition pieces released for just 24 hours. We called it the Stolen Fire Collection. The name hit the fashion press like a grenade. People speculated it was a dig at Granger Atelier. They weren't wrong. Vanessa knew she was being hunted. She just didn't know by who. Until the day she found out. Mark told me what happened. He had left a file open on her desk, intentionally, with a financial report showing Granger's losses, and a list of brands causing disruption. J. Cole Studios was highlighted. She circled the name. Red pen. And then she whispered, "Jessica Cole." Mark told me she went completely silent after that. Stared at the wall for 10 straight minutes. She knew. I wasn't hiding anymore. I didn't need to. Because her empire was bleeding. And I had just started cutting deeper. By the time Vanessa Granger figured out who was behind J. Cole Studios, it was too late. The press didn't know yet. But in the backrooms of the fashion industry, among the buyers, stylists, and editors who really pull the strings, The whisper was spreading. Jessica Cole is back. And this time she's not coming to work for anyone. She's coming to take over. There was a strange feeling in those days, watching her fall while I quietly rose. Vanessa used to dominate every headline. Every fashion blog had her name in gold. She hosted lavish shows, sat front row at Paris Fashion Week, and gave smug interviews about vision and legacy. But now, she was losing press attention. Her recent collections felt dated, recycled even. Some critics said they looked uninspired. Others were less kind. Worse, people started noticing the shift in tone. Vanessa's losing her touch. Remember when her designs were bold? J. Cole Studios has more edge now. Every headline like that was a needle in her pride. And then came the first public scandal. A former intern went viral on social media, sharing a behind-the-scenes video of Vanessa screaming at staff, throwing a coffee cup at a design board, and calling a junior designer a disposable stitch monkey. The footage was grainy, but clear enough. People had suspected Vanessa was ruthless. But now they saw it. Spread like wildfire. Cancel culture came knocking hard. Sponsors paused deals. One celebrity publicly cut ties with her brand. Her Instagram comments were flooded with backlash. But she still had one thing, the Granger name. Her company was her shield. And it was still standing. That's what I needed to change. I didn't want her to just lose followers. I wanted her to lose control. Control of the very thing she stole from others. Including me. And so, I went after her most sacred ground. The boardroom. Thanks to Mark, I knew who sat on the board of Granger Atelier. I knew which investors held real voting power, which ones had grown tired of Vanessa's drama, and which ones had already lost money thanks to her ego. And I also knew something else. Vanessa didn't own 100% of Granger Atelier. She owned 49%. The rest was for sale. Piece by piece, we started buying in. Quietly. Through proxies. Friends of Lena. Trust. Silent partners. We acquired 11% in just under a month. Then another 8%. It wasn't easy. Every deal had to be carefully masked. But by the time Vanessa realized what was happening, over 22% of her company had changed hands, and she had no idea who was behind it. She called an emergency meeting with the board. I wasn't in the room, but Mark was. Imitating Mark's recounting. She looked rattled. Like a queen realizing the throne isn't hers anymore. She demanded loyalty. Blamed everyone but herself. Accused them of betrayal. One of the newer board members, someone Lena's contact had introduced, looked her in the eye and said, "We're loyal to results, Vanessa. Not ego." That was the moment it started. The real collapse. Her name didn't carry weight anymore. Her power was no longer fear. It was a fading memory. Meanwhile, I was building a machine. J. Cole Studios was scaling with real staff now. A growing PR team. Production assistant. Lena had brought in 2 talented young designers who had been overlooked by other fashion houses, and I made them stars, because I remembered what it felt like to be the invisible one. And while we were preparing for our first official runway show, Vanessa was grasping at relevance. She tried to stage a comeback, a new collection called Revival. Ironically, almost every piece looked like a warped version of what I'd done in Ashes and Stolen Fire. Critics called it derivative, forced, lacking soul. And behind the scenes, more board members started talking about replacement. That was when Vanessa made her final mistake. She went live. A desperate, unscheduled live stream on her social media, where she tried to clear the air. She rambled for 12 minutes about betrayal, fake talent, and young imposters pretending they invented fashion. And then she said my name. Jessica Cole is nothing. She was a glorified assistant who stitched what I told her to. If the world thinks she's a visionary, then the world is blind. She gave me everything I needed. Proof of slander. Proof of fear. And most importantly, proof of desperation. The empire was cracking, and I was standing just outside the gates, waiting to walk in. There's a moment before a storm, when everything goes still. The wind calms. The air thickens. You can feel it coming. That was Fashion Week. Every major house was preparing their lines. Editors, celebrities, influencers. All watching. It was the Super Bowl of style, and for the first time ever, J. Cole Studios had a seat at the table. It was invitation only. Exclusive. And our invite, personally delivered by Eleanor Chase, the fashion queenmaker herself. "You've earned it, Jess," she said. "Now burn the place down." We had been prepping for months. Our collection was called Ghost Stitch, a tribute to the people who get no credit. The silent designers, the assistants, the interns, the Jessicas of the world. Every single piece had a meaning, message, and a memory. There was a coat that mimicked the one I sketched on my last day at Granger Atelier, the one Vanessa stole and claimed as her own. Except this one was embroidered with a phrase stitched in black thread down the lining. Designed in silence. Released with fire. We made sure that phrase would be seen when the model walked. The press didn't know it yet. But this show wasn't just about fashion. It was an open letter. And Vanessa, she was in the front row. She showed up dressed in all white, trying to reclaim control of the narrative, pretending she was unbothered, untouchable. But when the lights went down, and the first model walked the runway in our opening piece, an asymmetrical ash-gray dress with bold black slashes, the crowd went dead silent, and then gasped, because it wasn't just good. It was undeniable. Every look hit harder than the last. Structured blazers like armor, flowing fabrics with chaotic energy, and jewelry shaped like broken scissors and burning thread. It wasn't subtle. It was war. By the time the final look came down the runway, a deep crimson gown with a shattered glass corset and sleeves that trailed behind like wings, people were on their feet, not clapping, screaming. Eleanor Chase stood up first, followed by 3 Vogue editors. And then the chant started. J. Cole, J. Cole, J. Cole. Vanessa didn't clap. She didn't move. She just sat there, stone cold, as the camera turned on her. And then, I walked out. For the first time in 2 years, I walked onto the runway, hand in hand with Lena. The lights hit us. The crowd exploded again. And Vanessa, she got up and left. Mid-show. That was her retreat. I didn't look at her. I didn't need to. Because the moment was already mine. Backstage, as reporters flooded in, microphones flashing, I said just one thing. Some designs come from money. Mine came from scars. The next morning, headlines hit every major outlet. J. Cole Studios steals the spotlight. Who is the mystery genius behind the brand? Jessica Cole's return is the fashion industry's reckoning. Vanessa Granger silenced by former assistant's spectacular debut. People started connecting the dots. Some were shocked. Most weren't. And for the first time the world saw the truth. I wasn't the girl Vanessa discarded anymore. I was the woman who rose, from scraps to spotlight. But I wasn't done. Because while the world now knew my name, Vanessa still held the company she stole from so many. Now. 'Cause there was one last card to play. And when I played it, she wouldn't just lose her reputation. She'd lose everything. Revenge isn't complete until the person who broke you answers to you. That moment was coming. And I could feel it. After the Ghost Stitch show, J. Cole Studios exploded. We gained 400,000 followers in 72 hours. Our website crashed 3 times from traffic. Celebrities reached out. Stylists begged to pull our pieces for red carpet events. And investors. Suddenly they were listening. That was when Lena and I moved to the next phase, buyout strategy. Granger Atelier was hemorrhaging quietly. Sales were dropping, and Vanessa's public meltdown had scared off 3 big sponsors. Meanwhile, board confidence had hit an all-time low. Mark told me in a private message. She's scared, Jess. She's doing damage control calls at 2 a.m. She thinks someone on the board is plotting to replace her. He wasn't wrong. Because that someone was me. Here's the thing about corporations. It doesn't matter who started the company. It matters who controls the shares. And we'd been buying. Quietly. Strategically. Using proxies, silent investors, and angel funds. By now, we controlled 38%. All we needed was 13% more. To call a vote of no confidence. Mark came through again. He connected me to a longtime board member, Franklin DeWitt, an old-school investor who had grown tired of Vanessa's vanity and chaos. His vote could swing the entire outcome. We met in person. "Why should I side with you?" he asked. I showed him two things. A 5-year plan for Granger Atelier, if it merged with J. Cole Studios. A portfolio Vanessa had stolen from 3 former assistants. Sketches, samples, proof. He looked at the evidence. Looked at me. Then said, "She built her empire on stolen genius. Time to give it back." With his shares, we passed 51%. The vote was called. The boardroom was silent. Vanessa sat at the head of the table, her face pale, lips tight. She didn't know I was coming. Not until I walked in. Her eyes met mine. "You have no right to be here." Smiled. "Actually, Vanessa, I own 51% of your company now. I have every right." She looked to Franklin, to Mark, to the others, desperate for support. None came. The chairperson called the vote. Motion. Remove Vanessa Granger as CEO of Granger Atelier. Vote. 7 in favor. 2 opposed. 1 abstained. It was done. She stood up, trembling. "You're nothing without me." I leaned forward, calm and unflinching. "I was nothing because of you. Now, I'm everything despite you." She stormed out. The door closed behind her. And just like that, the woman who humiliated me, discarded me, and stole from me, was gone. I sat down at the head of the table, not as an assistant, not as a stitcher, but as the new CEO. Granger Atelier was now mine. And I had plans, not just for revenge, but for restoration. Because the best revenge is building something better than the person who broke you ever could. It would have been easy to turn Granger Atelier into a monument of revenge. To plaster my face across every boardroom. To fire everyone Vanessa ever hired. To erase her completely. But I didn't want her company. I wanted to rebuild it into mine. And that takes vision. The morning after the boardroom vote, headlines broke. Jessica Cole named CEO after Granger shakeup. The stitched-back empire. Cole takes control. Vanessa Granger ousted amid ethics scandal. Vanessa had disappeared. No statements, no posts. Just silence. Meanwhile, I walked into Granger Atelier's headquarters as its new leader. The building looked the same, but it felt different. You could feel the tension in the air. From designers, assistants, interns. People were scared. They didn't know what to expect from me. After all, their last visionary leader ruled with cruelty. So I called a full team meeting. Every floor. Every department. Everyone packed into the main studio. They expected a speech full of buzzwords and corporate jargon. Instead, I gave them this. I used to sit where you sit. I made coffee, took notes, got screamed at. No one knew my name until I left. But I remember what it felt like to be in this room, dreaming of creating something beautiful and being told I didn't matter. So let me be clear, under my leadership you matter. Your voice matters. Your work matters. And no one will ever take credit for what you create again. There was a long silence. And then, slowly, applause. Real, genuine, emotional applause. Some people even cried. The first thing I did as CEO was dismantle Vanessa's creative hierarchy. No more ideas flowing one way. We created an open studio model. Designers, interns, stylists, all allowed to pitch. Then I rehired everyone Vanessa blacklisted. Talented people she discarded. Including Maria Santos, the junior designer who Vanessa once called a glorified mannequin. Maria became our new lead designer. Next, we launched the Atelier Fund, a mentorship and grant program for young, unknown fashion students with no connections but raw talent. Funded by our profits. And then I made one last move. Changed the name. Not fully. Not loudly. just a rebranding. The label would now read Cole Granger Studios. But in the fine print, under every clothing tag, every runway note, every label inside each stitched garment, were 3 words. Inspired by truth. The press went wild. Sales doubled. Celebrities who once endorsed Vanessa now lined up to work with us. But for me, the most powerful moment wasn't a magazine cover or an investor meeting. It was walking through the studio at night, watching my team stay late not out of fear, but out of passion. Smiling, creating, belonging. Felt like home. The home I never had under Vanessa. The one I promised I'd build for others. Vanessa tried to create a kingdom with fear. I built an empire from scars. And no matter what came next, she could never take that back. Because I wasn't just rewriting her legacy. I was creating my own. One stitch at a time. I should have known it wasn't over. Revenge is rarely clean. And ghosts, they don't go quietly. For 6 months, Vanessa Granger vanished. No press, no statements, no appearances. Some said she left the country. Others thought she was in rehab. Rumors swirled. Plastic surgery, bankruptcy, even a nervous breakdown in Paris. I didn't care. I had a company to rebuild, a future to shape. And for a while, it was beautiful. We launched our new fall line, Redemption Skin. A blend of sharp lines and soft textures. A visual metaphor for pain turned into power. We sold out in days. The fashion world finally used the word they'd always denied me. Visionary. But then, she returned. Started with the leaks. Design sketches from our unreleased spring collection, suddenly appearing on a small, anonymous blog. Then came the fake interviews. Someone posing as a former J. Cole Studios designer, accusing me of being a tyrant in heels. Total fabrication. And then came the press conference. Vanessa, backlit, composed, too composed, dressed in black. She stepped in front of the cameras and said, I made mistakes, but I was also betrayed. Stabbed in the back by someone I mentored. Jessica Cole used me, humiliated me, and stole my company. I have the evidence to prove it. The world gasped. Her timing was smart. Right before Fashion Week. Right before our biggest collection yet. For the first time in over a year, the media turned back to her. She didn't just want her name back. She wanted revenge for my revenge. And she didn't come alone. She had hired Carter Sloan, a ruthless entertainment lawyer with a reputation for weaponizing lawsuits. Within 48 hours, we were hit with a cease and desist, accusing us of theft of creative assets, intellectual property fraud, and even hostile corporate espionage. It was nonsense, but dangerous nonsense. Because lawsuits, no matter how false, slow everything down. Scare investors, spook sponsors, threaten momentum. The board at Cole Granger was rattled. Even Franklin called me. She's pulling strings, Jessica. She wants to drag your name through the mud until the only way out is to give her a seat at the table again. Well, I didn't survive her once just to make space for her again. So we fought back. Lena called in legal firepower. Mark testified under oath, providing evidence of Vanessa's past abuses, including NDA-protected documentation we got unsealed through whistleblower provisions. We subpoenaed former staff. Brought in our security footage. Time-stamped with Vanessa stealing designs from her own interns years ago. Every piece added up. And the court began to see her for what she was. Not a victim. A ghost trying to haunt a house she no longer owned. Still, the press had a field day. Every tabloid headline was a circus. Granger versus Cole, fashion's civil war. Truth or treason. The rise and fall of a muse. Redemption or rewrite. And then came the night I knew she'd lost. Got a message. From Vanessa. Just 5 words. You think you've won, Jess. Not a threat. Confession. Because people who are still playing the game don't send messages like that. They make moves. But Vanessa was out of moves. Her lawsuits were collapsing. Her lies unraveling. And her legacy, now officially co-authored by me. Revenge doesn't always end with a bang. Sometimes it ends with silence, with the villain realizing the world moved on without them, and they can't catch up. Revenge stories usually end with a winner and a loser, someone on top, and someone buried. But life isn't that clean. Revenge gives you justice, but growth gives you peace. After Vanessa's lawsuits collapsed, the world moved on, faster than she ever expected. One fashion site ran the headline: "Granger is out. Coal is eternal." Harsh maybe, but accurate. Vanessa retreated again. No statements, no appearances. Just a fading name on old magazine covers. A ghost no longer haunting anyone but herself. And me. I was still here. Still building. Still designing. Still leading. But for the first time in years, I wasn't fueled by anger. I was fueled by vision. We launched our new mentorship branch, the Threadline program, focused entirely on helping underserved young designers from marginalized communities. We built scholarships, safe workspaces, and mental health support teams inside our offices, because no one should have to survive trauma just to chase their dream. And then came the full circle moment. A small fashion school in Brooklyn invited me to give a talk. Nothing fancy, just a room of young dreamers, notebooks in hand, eyes full of hope. One of them asked me, "What was the moment? The moment you knew you'd made it?" And I told them, it wasn't the takeover. It wasn't the runway. It wasn't even the headlines. It was the first time I walked into my office and saw someone smile while they were creating. That's when I knew I hadn't just made it. I'd made something better. I kept one piece from that first collection. Ghost Stitch. A simple gray blazer. Inside the collar, stitched in small black thread, are the words I wrote the night Vanessa fired me. "They will remember me." And they did. But not just for revenge. For what came after. For what I built. For what I restored. For who I became, not despite the fire, but because I walked through it and came out refined. This wasn't just a story of revenge. It was a story of return, of redemption, of reclamation. I was the assistant, then the outcast, then the enemy. But now I am the name on the door, the pen on the paper, the signature on the final stitch. And no one can take that away from me. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell icon. There are more powerful revenge stories coming your way. Thanks for watching. And remember, sometimes silence is power.